I'm Ava, and I'm about to turn 25 this year. I've been happily married to my husband Mateo for 6 years, and our son Jack just celebrated his 5th birthday. Initially, I worked full-time, but now I've shifted to part-time at the same company to better balance family life. Mateo, who is 4 years my senior at 33, was very romantic and proactive during our dating period. However, after we got married, I noticed a more dominating side to his personality. Mateo has an 18-year-old sister named Sophia. Their significant age gap seems to foster a rather indulgent relationship on his part. Before we were married, Sophia's frequent visits didn't bother me much. I thought it was nice how well they got along. But after the wedding, things started to change. Sophia often drops by our home unannounced, expecting to be catered to without a hint of gratitude. Rather than addressing this, Mateo expects me to simply accommodate her needs. She acts as though I'm not even there, only acknowledging Mateo with a casual, "Hey brother, I'm here again." Despite not being prepared for an extra guest, I find myself serving dinner to Sophia while Mateo, instead of being understanding, criticizes me in front of her for not being more thoughtful, even though Sophia offers what seem to be insincere apologies. It's clear she enjoys the special treatment from Mateo. After dinner, which often leaves me with just leftovers, Mateo and Sophia relax on the sofa, continuing their conversation while I'm left to clean up the dining area. They hardly acknowledge Jack or me, treating us more like household staff than family. One evening, as I was getting ready to bathe Jack, Mateo burst in, loudly instructing me to go buy a cake for Sophia because she wanted it right then, despite it being late. Feeling pressured, I reluctantly agreed and took Jack with me to the cake shop. As we left, I overheard Mateo and Sophia criticizing me for being inconsiderate and even questioning their decision for him to marry me. Though Jack couldn't understand their words, he could feel the tension. To distract us both, I asked him about his cake preference, and he excitedly chose one loaded with fruits. Our visit to the cake shop turned into a pleasant distraction, discussing different types of cakes. We arrived just in time before closing and found the specific cake Sophia wanted. I also bought the fruit-laden cake Jack had set his heart on. Back home, I served the cakes. Sophia and Mateo got their cake, and I prepared Jack's special cake and brought it to the dining room. Just as I placed it in front of him, Sophia pointed at it and expressed her desire for Jack's cake. Before I could even react, Mateo had already moved the cake from Jack to Sophia, dismissing Jack's protests. He justified his action by claiming he had bought the cake with his money, and therefore had the right to decide who got what. Unable to contain my emotions any longer, I realized how unfair and unsupportive the environment had become, not just for me, but for our son as well. This incident was a stark reminder of the unequal dynamics in our household, pushing me to reconsider our family situation and my next steps. Overwhelmed by my emotions, I finally expressed my discontent. In response, Mateo threatened me with divorce. Jack, who had been crying anxiously, grasped my hand tightly and then, trying to lighten the mood, said, "Mom, I also love cake with strawberries on it, yes. It's really delicious." He said this while eating the cake initially desired by Sophia. Feeling that Jack had endured too much, I quickly lifted his cake plate when I saw Sophia reaching for it again. I took Jack to another room so he could enjoy his cake without any disturbances. Meanwhile, Mateo apologized to Sophia, regretting his apparent stinginess. I wanted to respond sharply but held back for the sake of Jack. Watching Jack happily eat his cake warmed my heart. After he finished, we decided to have a late bath and then sleep in Jack's bed, creating a little sanctuary just for us. The next morning, I found that Sophia had left early. While preparing breakfast, I was shocked to hear Jack crying. His piggy bank, a gift from my father, was broken, and the money he had saved was missing. Jack, who cherished saying goodnight to his piggy bank, was devastated. When I confronted Mateo, he nonchalantly mentioned that Sophia needed some cash, so she took it from Jack's piggy bank. Holding a crying and trembling Jack, I cried along with him, deeply hurt by Mateo's actions, which clearly showed he prioritized his sister over our own son. Fueled by anger and sadness, I confronted Mateo more assertively than usual, breaking my usual restraint in front of Jack. Without saying a word, Mateo stormed off to the bedroom and returned with something that stunned me: divorce papers. He shoved them at me before storming out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Jack, who had never before let the issues with Mateo and Sophia affect him so deeply, had finally reached his breaking point, crying since the night before. Unable to bear seeing him so hurt, I suggested we skip daycare for the day. His response was a loud yes, accompanied by a faint smile. We spent the day playing and bonding. Jack pulled a picture book from the shelf, sat on my lap, and remarked with a grin, "The teacher at the nursery today was Mama, right?" His words and smile lit up the room. His little heart seemed so resilient, and I decided to make the day extra special by taking a day off work. Despite the potential inconvenience at my job, they understood the situation and granted me the day off. In the morning, we visited the park, played hide and seek, and had fun in the sandbox. It was a day filled with simple joys, a much-needed escape from the complexities at home, allowing both Jack and me to enjoy a moment of peace and togetherness. After a morning of play and fun, we returned home for lunch. Jack seemed sleepy, unusually dozing off on my lap like he used to when he was a baby. Though I initially planned to do household chores while he napped, today felt different. Instead, I chose to relish the tranquility of his peaceful face and gentle breathing. This serene moment was abruptly interrupted by a sound at the entrance. Someone had opened the front door. It was too early for Mateo to be home, which made me suspicious. Quietly, I carried Jack to the bedroom and hid in the closet, heart pounding. I could hear someone moving around the house, and to my surprise, it was Sophia's voice. Trembling with fear, I listened as she frantically searched for something, growing increasingly frustrated by her unsuccessful hunt. She then made a phone call, discussing with Mateo their failure to find what they were looking for. After she locked the front door and left, I put Jack in his bed and tried to make sense of the disturbing events. Mateo suddenly felt like a stranger to me, and a mix of disgust and fear surged through me. Deciding that we couldn't stay in the house any longer under these circumstances, I quickly packed essentials for Jack and myself and headed to the train station. Thankfully, my parents' home was just 3 stops away. When we arrived, my parents immediately sensed something was wrong from my distressed appearance, and welcomed us without questions. I explained everything to them, including my fear of staying in our home because of Mateo and Sophia's behavior. My mother speculated that Sophia might have been searching for something valuable, possibly cash or cards. Reflecting on my situation, I remembered my past life as a successful CEO in the handmade goods industry. I had passed the operational management to trusted friends when I chose to prioritize raising Jack. But I remained the CEO and still worked part-time from home, unbeknownst to Mateo. While I had mentioned to him that I received some financial support from the company, I had kept the details about my role as CEO and my savings a secret. This secrecy was due to Mateo's poor money management skills and his tendency to spend everything he earned. At first, Mateo provided only $3,710 a month for food expenses and even suggested I quit my job to become a full-time housewife. However, with the financial demands of raising Jack and the limited budget for food, I never agreed to quit my job. Instead, I continued my involvement with the company discreetly, ensuring some financial independence. This realization underscored the necessity of my decision to leave, at least until I could confront Mateo and resolve our situation more safely and openly. After Jack was born, I used my savings to cover his nursery fees and clothing since Mateo only provided $300 for our food budget each month. I never asked him for more money, leading him to believe I had savings stashed away. Given Sophia's apparent need for money and Mateo's assumptions about my financial state, it seemed likely they were searching for my cash cards. However, I have a separate savings account dedicated to Jack, into which a portion of my salary is directly deposited each month. Despite their search, they wouldn't find any cash cards since I always carry my valuables with me. Mateo had reluctantly allowed me to work part-time, and to ensure I wouldn't consider divorce, he had me sign a post-marital property waiver through a lawyer. This, combined with the suspicious activities at home, deeply unsettled me. After my father suggested I keep my valuables secure, I decided to store them, including my cash cards, in my parents' safe. One afternoon, as I pondered their need for money, Jack approached my father, crying over his broken piggy bank, a symbol of his shattered trust and savings. My father, infuriated by Jack's story, vowed to confront Mateo. My mother, however, advised a calmer approach to discover their true motives. Considering Mateo's mention of divorce might be an attempt to shift blame and make the divorce more favorable for him. Determined to uncover their intentions, I decided to secretly record their conversation by consulting a lawyer who was a friend of my father's. Returning home, I started preparing dinner with my phone discreetly recording, screen down. Mateo arrived home unexpectedly and immediately questioned me about my cash cards. His vague responses tried to mask his deceit. When I remained silent, Mateo grew agitated and demanded all my part-time earnings for his sister. Refusing, I explained that the money was for Jack's savings. In response, he angrily pushed the signed divorce papers toward me, declaring that I was living off his money and didn't need to save for Jack. He even insinuated that he valued Sophia more than our son. Hearing this, I stopped preparing the meal, put the divorce papers in my bag, took Jack by the hand, and headed for the door. Mateo shouted with serious intent, instructing me never to come back. I responded firmly, stating I wouldn't return to a home where strangers could freely come and go. After leaving, I received numerous messages and calls from Mateo, which I ignored and turned off my phone. Seeking refuge at my parents' house, I shared the recording and divorce papers with them. Although I confessed to having no love or affection left for Mateo, I expressed my concern for Jack's well-being. My parents supported whatever decision I would make, fully acknowledging the potential emotional impact a divorce might have on Jack. As I grappled with the decision, their support was a beacon of hope in navigating these tumultuous times. As Mateo and Jack expressed their hunger, my mother, noticing my distressed state, kindly made hamburgers Jack's favorite meal. Overwhelmed with emotions, tears welled up in my eyes as she warmly told Jack that she prepared the hamburgers so he and I could feel welcome to visit anytime. Jack, taking a bite, exclaimed with joy, praising the hamburgers and expressing a wish to eat them every day. I responded, telling him that the special taste was because the hamburgers were made with all the love I had for him. In a touching gesture, Jack took a big bite and then offered it to me. Moved by his kindness, I couldn't hold back my tears even as I tried to stop them. They continued to fall. My father, noticing Jack's concern over my tears, reassured him that they were tears of happiness, not sadness. Hearing this, Jack, in a moment of understanding, hugged me tightly. And even my father's eyes shimmered with tears, reflecting the joy and the blessing of being surrounded by family. I remarked to Jack how precious family is, which made him curious. He asked if Dad had meant that only Sophia was family. My father gently corrected him and asked Jack if he wanted to live with them, being part of our close-knit family unit. With a laugh, Jack happily agreed, making everyone around the table smile. Despite the looming thoughts of divorce, the meal filled with such warmth and love made me feel certain about my decision. I planned to talk to Jack about the divorce, knowing the discussion would be difficult. The weight of explaining such complex adult matters to a child weighed heavily on my heart, but seeing him so happy and secure in the embrace of my family gave me the strength I needed. I knew that moving forward while challenging was the right path for us, ensuring that Jack would always be surrounded by love and care, shielded from any further distress. Jack, my heart, quickly understood the situation and was eager to live together as a family. He affectionately referred to our older pet dog as his younger brother. Meanwhile, the process of my divorce began when I contacted a lawyer, a friend of my father's. The following day, my father and Jack shared a moment of light-hearted laughter while I lay in bed, reflecting on my childhood. The next morning, I was overwhelmed to find over 171 missed calls and messages on my phone from Mateo, indicating his emotional turmoil. Drained, I turned off my phone. With the lawyer's help, I briefed my parents about the situation. It turned out Sophia had racked up a substantial debt due to her casino visits and shopping sprees, and Mateo had planned to use my savings to cover her expenses. The lawyer informed us that the divorce papers were already in motion, and Mateo, realizing the finality of the situation, broke down crying. Although we anticipated some conflict over child support, Matteo agreed to contribute $400 monthly for Jack's upkeep. Later, during a more subdued conversation, Matteo acknowledged his financial manipulations and shared his complicated feelings about Sofia. I stood firm on my decision not to reconcile. I could hear his quiet crying before he wished me well and ended the call. Resolute through it all, I discussed future arrangements, with my parents deciding to stay with them until Jack was grown. I resumed my duties as a company president and later heard that Matteo and Sofia had informed their parents about the divorce and their debts, leading to their disownment. Now, I cherish my days spent with my family, finding joy and peace in their company.